Hey guys, welcome to the D2 Live. We're back, and I'm back. I had a day off yesterday, and I've been copying it left, right, and centre. People saying I'm soft. I was actually crook. It was legitimate. I had a COVID test, got the all clear. I'm joined, as always, by four-time national road champion Johnny Trevorrow, and we're joined by Matthew White, who's the head sports director, obviously, for Team BikeExchange. And we might as well get straight into it. Because Whitey, there's obviously a big talking point yesterday with the unfortunate incident that happened out on the road with the team car and Deceuninck-QuickStep's Pieter Serry. Can you just explain for us, what actually happened?
Yeah, so we were at the bottom of the final climb of the race yesterday, and we got a call up from the head commissaire, who's on the race radio, so we can hear the race radio. They said, BikeExchange, could you please come up to the car one, which is where the head commissaire is. And we didn't even know what it was about. And then when we got there, because of the new rules that everyone's talking about, the riders can't dump rubbish except outside the zones or jackets or all of these things. So one of our riders had given the head commissaire one of his thermal jackets because it was at the bottom of the last climb. We were unaware of this. We pulled up to the car, and the lady who one of the UCI commissaires started handing me out one jacket of one of our riders. And then she stopped and paused and was going to give me another one. And obviously I'm not driving the car. I was looking at her, and then all of a sudden Pieter Serry, who had done his work on the front of the bunch, had swung off and went from going very fast to very slow. And Gino just misjudged, didn't see him, and then just clipped him. And he clipped him. We were going 2 or 3 kilometers an hour, and Chris clipped his back wheel, and poor Pieter Serry went just under on the ground and under the car. So then our mechanic and Gene got out to see if he was okay and helped him back on his bike, and he rode off up to the finish. Now that was the incident that happened in the race, and then after the race, Gene went and spoke to the sports director from QuickStep, David Bramati, and apologised for the situation. And then Gene also spoke to Pieter Serry last night, and there's no bad blood between the two teams, it's an accident, and fortunately no one was injured in that accident. His bike, there was nothing wrong with his bike, nothing wrong with him. Got on and finished the stage, and yeah, anyone who's been in a bike race knows that there's lots of close calls in these races, and it was an unfortunate incident, but all it was just a simple accident. And because it was on television, unfortunately Gene has now won't be able to drive in the convoy for the rest of the Giro. So we've had a little bit of bad luck running into this Giro with one of our sports directors returning a positive COVID test 6 days out from the race, Vittorio. And then now Gino won't be able to drive a car for the rest of the race. We spoke to the UCI about appealing that process, because I think we definitely deserve the fine, and we definitely deserve some kind of sanction. But I think it's pretty tough to expel someone for the rest of the race for what was an accident where no one got hurt.
Well, when I read that he was expelled, I thought he meant he had to leave the Giro. So he could still be on. He just can't drive. Is that the situation?
He just can't be in the race convoy. So he can still help with the planning and what we're doing in the race. He just can't be in car one or car 2.
Okay, not even in the passenger seat.
No, he can't be in. No, he can't be in a race car. He can't be in a race car. So look, it's really disappointing for Gene. Obviously, Gene was a bit rattled when it happened. We're all ex-bike riders. We know the situation. We know how tight it is, and he felt terrible for that. But I said it was an accident. No one got hurt. And I said there's no bad blood between the teams, and I think, and when I discussed the incident with the UCI, I asked, well, where's the precedent for sending someone off the race, even though we only just started the Giro? And the response was an ambulance had clipped the rider one Tour de France, and the ambulance driver was then not allowed to work for the rest of the race, and another one was a motorbike one. And I said, well, okay, that's their incidents, but those people aren't in our working environment. They are not in the bubble that we work with every day. And I just think it's, the UCI are trying so hard to implement some of these rules. And, if they hadn't have implemented the rules that they had, we wouldn't have needed to go up and pick that jacket up. So we were following the rules. We were going up to get a jacket, and an accident happens. And now guys are coming back to cars and dropping off empty water bottles because they're afraid of being sanctioned or kicked off the race. So I get the intent of these rules, but I think there has not been so much research and practicalities around them.
Yeah, very interesting. He's exactly right. And I mean, the water bottle situation is getting ridiculous. I mean, the guys need a lot of water bottles, and it's hard enough coming back to fill up with water bottles, but having to go back and take the empties back, it just seems absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's not legal.
John, we're not even in summer yet. Imagine what are we going to do when it's 35 to 40 degrees and the guys are going through 10 water bottles, 15 water bottles each.
I do understand with the rubbish and that sort of thing, they've got some issues with the local towns and whatever.
For sure.
But hey, the water bottles are like gold for the people and the fans. There won't be any water bottles left laying on the side of the road as rubbish. They're not rubbish. The fans love to grab a bid on.
Yeah, definitely. And look, the UCI are very reactionary. You saw at Tour of Flanders, the rider from AG2R got thrown off Tour of Flanders for throwing a water bottle. And then due to public opinion, they changed the rule. So now at the Giro, no one gets thrown off for throwing water bottle. You get 2 warnings and then the third one. So, there's certainly not a lot of clarity around some of these rules. And I said, the intention for some of these rules are fine, but the how they're implying the penalties is not across the board fair. And when you look at, it's another situation. Groenewegen got a 9-month suspension for what happened in Tour of Poland last year, and I read yesterday or 2 days ago that Bahani got a 2-month suspension for doing the same thing at a race in France. Now, that should be judged on the action of the rider, not what happens to the consequence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yep, I agree.
Waddy, do you think that the incident gives an opportunity to raise awareness for just how important it is for safety out on the roads with, motor vehicles and riders? Because, touch wood, you guys were going at a slow speed, but it just shows how easy these sort of things can happen. Yeah,
for sure. But Jonesy, you've been in team cars, haven't you, mate? There's a lot of close calls and there's a lot of things. And the drivers in the convoy are very, very good drivers, very, very good drivers. And everyone's very skilled at what they're doing. And I think, the amount of race days a year and the amount of accidents there are very, very minimal. So I think the most impressing and important issue that I think the UCI can really manage there is the courses. And you saw the course the other day that put a couple of key riders out of the bike race. I think the people need to get back to basics and worry about things that are directly affecting our racing and the safety of our racing, not something they see on television. Or the other thing I brought up yesterday was, there was a massive car accident in our convoy, 3 cars behind us yesterday, and there was no action. There was no action taken in that team who wrote off a Mercedes Benz because they ran up the back of the back of another car. So what's the difference between an accident's an accident? And just because one was on television, one gets a different penalty than one that wasn't seen until the day after. So there's certainly not a lot of clarity in these decisions. And I said the UCI should get back to basics and supply us with safe courses and get back to what they should be doing. That's adjudicating the sport and making a safer environment for the riders.
And I feel for Gene because I've driven with Gene on a few occasions, and he's an absolutely brilliant driver and a great tactician and a champion bloke. So, I feel for him at the moment, poor bugger.
Yeah, definitely.
How's he holding up?
Yeah, good, mate.
With all this? Yeah,
good, mate. Good. Yeah, obviously he was rattled a bit when it happened. That's normal. But mate, we've got to move on and get on with the bike race. And like I said, he spoke to Pieter Serry, he spoke to QuickStep. There's no bad blood there between the teams, and they also realise that their sports director can also make accidents. No one's perfect. We're spending a lot of time in these cars for 10 months a year, and they understand the situation.
Well, back to the bike race, mate. It's it's another big stage. How's Yatesy after yesterday? He was still up there with the pointy end of the GC guys. Bernal's obviously looking really strong as well.
Yeah. Look, mate, there's only 39 seconds between Bernal between the best GC guys, or you can throw a blanket over the first 10 guys, where this is the end of the first week. As we know the Giro will be decided in the third, and we're in a good place there, mate. He's lost a little bit of time, but it's nothing serious. And I said, yesterday was one big climb to the final. It exploded a little bit in the last kilometre and a half, but Bernard's looking good. But as we know, it's a long way. It's a long way from here to Milan.
I was impressed with Gino Mada, who won the stage from the breakaway, and it was pretty special considering Bahrain Victorious lost their big hitter, Michael Landa, the day before. So it was pretty special. But I was impressed with actually his ride. They were away there all day. He managed to ride away and just hold them off. And if we remember back in Paris-Nice, he was the poor guy about to win his first World Tour race, and Pogacar ran him down in the last 20 metres. So, it was pretty good for him.
Yeah, look, it was. And I think he can thank Matty Morich, his teammate, for absolutely drilling a lot of those descents and putting it all on the line for him. But I thought Gino Mader was going to get caught again inside that last kilometre, but Ineos just let their run a little bit too late there, and it was a great win for those guys, and really good for them to bounce back after the disappointment of losing Landa the day before. But we had some changes in temperatures yesterday. We had one stage, we started in maybe 17, 18 degrees. It rained, then we got up to 24 degrees. Then we got on the next rain. We had hail, and it got down to 8 degrees, and we descended from 1,500 meters down to 500, a 40-kilometer descent in the wet. A lot of guys got pretty cold down there. Then we started the final climb of the day. So it was the weather at the moment. It's been pretty hit and miss, and the long-term weather forecast for this week is more of the same. We're sitting in perfect sunshine at the moment. And but there's still, I think there's a chance of rain every day in the afternoon with some afternoon storms. So anyway, one day at a time. We've got a flat day, one day for the sprinters today, and we'll get through that first.
Is it some? I was just going to say with the GC, is it something that some of these guys have to train for, racing in the cold? Because you look at guys like George Bennett, and his Giro GC ambitions are over, and they're sort of citing it that he just can't handle these cold conditions. Is it something that these guys actually can train for?
They can. The same with the hot weather conditions as well. Some people remember Svein Tuft. He could everyone would be wearing thermal jackets. He'd be getting around with a light vest on.
He took the piss though. He'd be having those showers in the creek. But his body
exactly. Yeah. But on the other hand, Sveino couldn't handle the heat, could he? So some guys really function well in different conditions, and as a general rule, someone like George Bennett, he's running at 2 or 3% body fat. He lives in Andorra, so he would get the opportunity to train in some cooler weather. But it just some guys really suffer in the cold weather, and some guys can excel in it. And same with the heat. Some guys, it's usually the skinnier guys, the little guys, they usually can handle the heat because they expire less. And whereas the big guys, they're losing a lot of body fluids in those really hot conditions, and that's a much more taxing effort for them.
Now, on paper, stage 7 looks, pretty straightforward, but you look at the final, it looks quite technical coming into the final finish there. What are going to be the instructions, particularly for that final part?
Well, it's like always when you got a GC team, the number one is to get inside the 3K to go banner. That's obviously that's where the safety begins. And then the nice thing about this circuit, I dare say it'll be another pretty hectic final. Hopefully not as hectic as 2 days ago. But there's a little climb there at 1.5K to go, which I think is great for us because it's actually a point there that the sprinters they might drop back, or someone like Yatesy or our smaller guys can move up into position on that ramp because some of those big guys will be going into it pretty pinned. And I think that little ramp there will certainly, it'll take a fair bit of edge off the sprint teams for the finish.
All right, mate. Well, obviously, after this stage, there's a couple of monsters coming up. So, all the best today. Hopefully, everyone stays safe, and we'll check in again tomorrow for a big weekend ahead at the Giro.
Okay, no worries. I hope you're feeling better
thanks,
soon. I hope
Whitey.
you're getting over your flu there, Jonesy, quick.
All good, mate.
Talk to you in
I'm on
24 hours.
Vitamin C's, mate. Vitamin C's.
Start eating garlic cloves, mate. Garlic cloves.
Mate, I still remember those days when they were just having bulbs of them, and Damien Housen sitting up the back of the bus there, just fogging those screens. And there was all talk about UCI regulations. There was almost like garlic tests daily for the riders. That was next level.
Good stuff.
All right, mate. Well, I think he's frozen. Frozen.
It's very funny. Look,
yeah, he's loving it. Well, that was sports director Matt White. Before we bring on the two Scots, we're going to have a quick word from our great mates at BikeExchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. BikeExchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our mates at BikeExchange. Now, before we bring in the two Scots, Scott Sunderland and Scotty McGroy, what are your thoughts on everything that's happened? Iffy?
Look, like you, Dan, we've been in the team cars. I've driven as a sports director in the peloton, and I've been covering the events for a lot of years. And it nearly happens in every bike race. I feel for Gene because he's a very talented and not just a great player, but he's very switched on. It's sort of out of character for him to make that mistake. But as Matty said, a big crash in just behind them the day before, 2 days before. These things do happen in bike races. So bad luck. I only just clipped him, but hey, it could have been much worse. I'm really looking forward to talking to Scotty Sunderland very shortly, who we're about to have as our guest, because he's going to have a very different view on it, I'm sure. But Gene Bates is a professional DS and a very good driver. It's just bad luck. I feel for him.
Well, when I was saying before about, is an opportunity to raise awareness that accidents can happen. I mean, that's my point. You've got someone that's got all this experience. He's a great driver. He's done X amount of races before, but these accidents actually happen. And it
not very often, though, mate. Surprisingly, they don't happen very often. And I don't know what you could do. I don't know there's no regulation you could bring in to fix that. You have the best drivers you can have. And it's different to any other sport. You are it's a very different situation with it's a moving, washing machine.
No, but what I mean, John, is it's a wake up call for people. Like when you're driving, and you're looking at your phone or you're looking at your text, and it's a split second or something.
For your general public.
General public. That was my whole point. It wasn't for the people in the race. It was a general public thing.
Yes.
So it's like if that can happen in a race at 4K an hour, it can happen out on the roads, which could have devastating effects, as we all know. Everyone knows someone that's connected with an accident which doesn't have that result. That was my point.
I might get you to talk to my granddaughter, who has a little bit of issue of concentrating on the roads.
Well, there you go. What I'm saying is use it as a wake-up call, people out there. Anyway, enough of our banter back and forth. It's time to bring in Scotty Sunderland and Scott McGrory. Fellas, welcome back to the Detour. We'll start with you, Scotty Sunderland. What were your thoughts, obviously, when you saw the incident yesterday at the Giro? You've had experience yourself. What was the overriding emotions when you saw that?
Bugger.
Yeah.
Look, Yeah, I do know Gene, known him for many years, and like with all my ex-colleagues now from my time as being a sports director, this is not what you want to have happen. Far from it. And I'm sure that Gene had no intention of this to happen. Just as you guys were just mentioning, a small lapse of concentration, it can happen to anybody. It does happen all the time in general public. In races, fortunately, it doesn't happen. It's very, very rarely it does happen. It has happened. I've bear witness to that, unfortunately. But yeah, it's unique situation, unique circumstances. But just proves again that everybody, even the most professional drivers, most experienced drivers, are vulnerable for situations like this. And that one split second could have been a lot worse. Luckily, Pete was okay. He could jump back up and finish the stage. So thank God for that.
Well, Scotty, just to go back, I mean, Dan mentioned that you had a similar incident, but let's go to that. Let's go. So, what year was it, Scotty?
Amstel Gold, April 98, and Amstel
98.
Gold race.
Yeah, I was thinking around just before 2000. So, Amstel 98, you actually got hit by a driver, DS of another team, who was your former DS in Keith Prem. Only you didn't get out of it near as lightly as Pieter Serry did. You actually knocked around a fair bit. So, just take us through that. What happened to you at that time?
We were coming into the last 20 kilometres, so the feeding was just about to finish. So that's why I was at the back of the group. Pieter was just getting his water bottles and last instructions from Prem, because we didn't have radios at that time, or very few did, and it was always nice to get that last little bit of a chat. So definitely we'd just come out of all the climbs, and it was a different parkour those days. So we had a bit of a flat section. So we were all just trying to grab a last water bottle, gel, etc. And so for Pieter was getting his bottles, and I'm waiting at the last of the riders to get my, waiting for my car to come up to give me a bottle. For Pieter went to come back into the enter back into the group. And that's where Prem lost concentration, was too focused on him, didn't see me, or claims he didn't see me, although he did see me looking at the window afterwards. That was proven in court, and hit me. But yeah, as you mentioned, we were doing closer to 50 k's an hour than that 5 k's an hour with Pete yesterday. So yeah, my injuries were almost cost me my life. So yeah, it's still quite a bit of an emotional thing for me, but it just proves how quickly it can happen, though.
Yeah, and I don't think Prem actually stopped either, which is another another thing. But this is the amazing thing of that. So that's 98. So that's 23 years ago, and it's still in the courts.
Yeah, look, there's some things going. That's a bit of a tactical reason why that is. Okay, I mean, he's already was found guilty then. He was sanctioned from the Dutch equivalent to Cycling Australia, so the Dutch Wheel Federation. And he was lost his license to be a sports director anymore. Not just from that, he also spent time in jail in France due to things that happened in that year of Festina. So, yeah, he spent some time there. So he was eliminated out of the peloton. His arrogance also made him a very difficult person to work with. He'd been instructed by the chief commissaire at that time on 3 different occasions to get out of the area. So he's putting the other riders at risk and was not following instructions from commissaires. So, yeah, all in all, he just failed to listen to commands and follow the rules and regulations. So he was no longer allowed to be in the peloton, which is a good thing, I think.
Scotty McGrory, I'm sure you're going all quiet there, Dan, but Scotty, I'm sure you got something to say.
Just obviously back.
I had myself on mute.
He's back.
What I said is it's a real light-hearted intro for you, Scotty. We bring up all this light stuff, and you weren't responding. You're just there with a still face. I thought, geez, have I hit a nerve? What's going on? But I was on mute.
Yeah, that was a bit of a throw in the deep end sort of thing, but it's still a touchy one. I mean, that turned my whole career around, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, this is at a point where, I just come off the back of winning a couple of races at the beginning of the year, getting some good results, and 11th in Ghent-Wevelgem, 11th in Tour of Flanders, 17th, I think 16 or 17 in Liège-Bastogne-Liège the weekend before, and then come to Amstel, where I'm still in the hunt for a podium place. I won't say victory, but at least a podium place again, or another top 10, and to pretty much take me out for 2 years,
Well, as downer it is as it is to talk about it, it's relevant after what happened last night. Things, and listening to John and Dan, you guys just before we came on, just talking about how it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it can be that serious. And for Scott, it was career changing and almost life changing. So. But at the same time, we know that, and Scott alluded to it, or more than alluded to it, but Preem was pretty arrogant, as one of the older statesmen back then in the peloton and being a former professional and all that kind of stuff. That's not the case with Gene Bates. Gene Bates is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And I think generally, just to back up the conversation, even Whitey was saying about how good the drivers are, we're not talking about like Formula One racing car drivers here, but we're talking about ex-professionals, ex-riders that just have that eye for their surroundings and normally their peripheral vision, and they understand the flow of a peloton and the riders and what they're doing. And if you put anyone else, even like racing car driver, bam, put them into a team car and say, right, you're going to go and drive the BikeExchange car now at the stage of the Giro tomorrow because Gene can't, they would be absolutely shitting themselves, and it would be very dangerous. They're brilliant car drivers, but not in that environment. And that's what we do have in the peloton now.
You're 100% right there, Scotty. The drivers, the UCI also brought in some other protocols. Let's come back a bit. So from that time of my accident, Case Preem was the team director, but he was also driving the car. That doesn't happen anymore. That's already been quite some years, already back from the early 2000s. Not long after my incident and a few other incidents that followed afterwards, is that all sports directors, the leading sports director, has to be a passenger. He cannot be driving and giving instructions, et cetera, all at the same time. Especially now we're all working with iPads. They've got Velo Viewer. They've got all this other data that's coming in. They're actually able to put things onto the head units of the riders, messaging when a climb starts, feed zones, et cetera. So there's a lot to be done in the team car, hence why there's a driver designated to purely drive the vehicle, steer the vehicle, listen to radio instructions, which are coming on Radio Tour, but very little else. Not bidding, which is going out the window, etc. But other than that, full concentration on driving. The other thing is, ex-professionals, you've got that sixth sense, you've got that feel to it. You know what's happening. I still remember with Carlos Sastre, we were following after he won the Tour. I was doing the Tour of Spain with him, where he finished third. But we had Danny Penderosa as a guest. He's a good friend of Carlos's. Superbike MotoGP. He couldn't believe it, the way the riders went down the climbs and how we chased him down the descents following these guys. He said, "You guys are nuts." And this is coming from the guy who does wheel stands at 250 k's an hour. So, it's all relative to the situation. And once again, Gene Bates is a hell of a nice guy. He's been doing a great job. He's got lots of years of experience. But, shit can happen, and it just does. So, fortunately, it doesn't happen too often.
Just on that note, over the years, I've brought a lot of people over to the Tour de France and to the Giro, guests, VIPs, and who have absolutely loved coming to the Tour de France, to go to the village. But the thing that they all talk about, the ones that get that great opportunity to get a day in the team car, that's the thing they never forget. That's the minute you mention it, you run into them. Again, they bring it up straight away before they talk about anything else, before they talk the great wine bars or anything else. It's that day in a team car. They never forget it.
Well, I've had guests in team car with me with my time with CSC, and some of them absolutely loved it. Some of them was like, well, that was my scariest ride I've ever had in my life, particularly when you're in the Alps or in the Dolomites. It's an unforgettable moment, and it's quite surreal. First of all, being a rider, being able to do what you can do and what happens in the peloton, but then to be in the convoy of the following the riders down the hills and climbing, etc. It's pretty amazing experiences. And look, Velon do a great job with what they do with the team directors and with the riders' footage and stuff. And I think now we're actually able to see a little bit more of what's happening in the peloton. And you know, Dan, from the time you've spent with Green Edge, you know, on the road doing your backstage passes and stuff, you know, all that sort of thing that's happened in the years, giving people an insight of what it's actually like in the guts of it all.
Oh, mate, I had many days in the car absolutely shitting myself. That was just daily. And are you trying to play Candy Crush with Steve-O? Like, you know, it was terrible. You get, like, splitting headaches. What were you going to say, Scooter?
It's those hangovers, mate. Those hangovers in the team cup the next day. Terrible, aren't they? No, just
recommended that one.
People, had people coming into cars. I remember I did the Tour of Austria with an Australian registered Pro Continental team back then, and the owner of the team hadn't been to any of the bigger races or better races in Europe. And now I know that he had this very, very luxurious sports car back in Australia, and I should assume that, you know, he was pretty good at you know, being in the car and didn't mind it. And it was just on one of those little tricky descents on a finishing circuit, narrow roads, riders had been dropped, they're coming back through the convoy, you're trying to keep up with the cars in front as well. It wasn't that dangerous. It was just so much out of his comfort zone, plus grabbing on the radio, talking to the riders while you're driving one-handed, doing all this as well. And he literally reached over, grabbed me by the arm and was screaming, like absolutely squealing. He was so scared of what we were doing. And that made me scared because, you know, it was every team car's doing the same thing. Well, we're not doing anything out of the norm. But, they're just not used to it. So the danger now is who does replace Gene? Because they take him out on safety grounds, and then we have to have another driver in there. They have to be approved, obviously, by the UCI. But what if they're a really inexperienced driver that then replaces them? So that could in itself create more danger.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, though, Scott. I mean, any World Tour team nowadays, you've only got the best there. You're not going to put the lives at risk of any other rider or anything else. I mean, the reason that you're actually making it the World Tour is because you know what you're doing and you've got the skills and expertise to be able to execute it. So I'm pretty sure that any driver comes in there that they're good, and even the drivers and we see that, you know, all the Pro Series teams, pro teams, they've got the experience there as well. But you are right, though, and if you mentioned it too, how do you improve this? It's very difficult. I think the roles are there, but the process is also happening on how to upskill these riders, the drivers, and the best drivers are ex-bike riders because they've got that sixth sense as we talked about before, and they feel the race, they see the race, and they understand the race, and that's all. And we are also traffic-free, supposedly, without any other traffic. So there are a rare occasion where there is a little bit of leakage, and you see an odd vehicle coming onto the course, etc. That can happen. We are conducting these events on public roads, so you can't fence off the whole 200 k's of the stage, but you know.
Doesn't happen at bloody Flanders, mate.
I remember the Tour of Mexico. This is back in 1972, or amateurs. I'm in the back of this pickup truck because I'd been eliminated in the high altitude, and I was sort of giving him a hand in the back of the truck the last couple of days.
Hung over, probably.
Well, anyway, this stray vehicle just drove up on the outside. Just a big Ford F100 ute, just with a couple of Mexican cowboys in it, and officials are trying to pull them off. So they just drove past us. Next minute, a copper pulls out, runs him off the road straight into a tree. So he's doing about 60 k an hour straight into a tree, and that was the end of them. We didn't see them again. But that was Mexico. Pretty wild.
I'd heard stories about, it was either Mexico or Colombia, where some of the motorcycle police were actually shooting dogs.
That was in that tour. That was in that tour of Mexico, was shooting wild dogs on the side of the road. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. When you're an organizer in both in Asia and in South America, you do get those things happening. You know, the stray dogs, the animals, and how they deal with it is what's the scary part.
The funniest stray dog stories from the 2010 Delhi Commonwealth Games, when
I was going to say that. Yeah.
The mayor, whose actual name is Sheila Dickshit, she said, "I've got a solution for the dogs." And all of a sudden the dogs went missing, and they said, "What happened to the dogs?" And she goes, No, it's all okay. They're off at a nice little farm now, and when the games are over, we're going to get them and bring them back. I don't think they got the dogs back.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
We've got a lot of comments coming through on the wire. Samantha says, lots to talk about tonight, boys. Yes. Diane Hannon says, the water bottle rule is nuts. Now, Scotty Sunderland, what is your take on the new restrictions with water bottles and rubbish? And this, Matt White earlier was saying
this one was going to come up. This one.
Well, this could lead to a lot of the issues because they were obviously getting a jacket from the commissaires. Is it causing more issues than what it's trying to solve?
First of all, this ruling came into place. This and the Super Aero Tuck came into place on 1st of April, which was 3 days before Tour of Flanders. So I had a lot to deal with there. I had a lot of discussions with UCI. We put in some processes after the decision was made to help ensure that the communication through to the riders in particular, but also the teams, that they drummed this into their skulls, that these are the new rules and regulations. Because us as organisers, the last thing we want to do is have Ala Philippe dropping down towards Puddlesberg, throwing away a water bottle, wins the Tour of Flanders, and then is disqualified immediately afterwards. So that was a big concern. But let's backtrack a little bit to the process and how these rulings come into place. This was all off the back of a lot of things that happened in 2020 and 19. First of all, stray water bottle, Geraint Thomas, bang, out of the Giro. Other safety measures, Super Tuck, because we're starting to see riders doing this in the peloton, in a bunch or in a breakaway, rather than just doing it on their own in the front where they've got no one else near them. But more importantly is the image that it was giving to the younger kids who aren't as experienced, don't have the professional equipment, aren't having brand new tyres which are put on their bikes practically every day, a chain which is replaced every 2 days, or even sometimes every day in some teams. These are all the things that people aren't equating for, that when they're at home doing this, that their spokes are okay on their front wheel, that the carbon fibre rim that they're using and wheels they're using are of the best quality before they do these Super Tuck sort of things. So that's why this decision was made. The second thing was with the water bottles. They needed to find a solution. All event organisers and cycling in general, including the teams, because they're the ones who are doing the throwing away of the rubbish, is because of the plastic. We've all been lost sight of this a little bit because of COVID. No one's talking about the environment, and very little about the environment the last 18 months, 12 months. But that still stays a major concern. So how do we deal with this? So the rules were brought into creating litter zones. So every 30 to 40 kilometres maximum, there is a litter zone, designated one. We give all this information as organisers through to VeloViewer. They then give it through to the teams. So the teams put it on the head units of the riders. So the riders know exactly when there's going to be a litter zone so they can throw rubbish away. There is that whole thing of creating this new way of thinking of not throwing water bottles to kids or to any other spectators, which was the norm beforehand. But unfortunately, when we see in the images, and you guys get this, you'll see a rider throw a water bottle away, but you don't see where it lands because the TV shot is on the rider. But there could be someone standing over there or to the left or to the right, and you know it's going to be picked up. But to the people who are not cycling savvy and don't have that knowledge, are thinking it's just going away into nature and this water bottle is going to be there polluting the environment. So, yeah, exactly. But for the people who are less cycling educated, we need to be able to take steps to help this. So, to again take the next step is that this was all taken into a meeting. These meetings was consisting of CPA, so it's a Professional Cycling Association, with all the riders represented. Philip Gilbert and Matteo Trentin were the two representatives. Then you had AOC, which is the race organisers organisation. Then you had AIGCP, which is the teams organisation, and then you had the pro teams association from within the UCI. So they all discussed these situations, and this is the protocol or the way they felt, the steps they could employ to help this situation. And so everybody had input on it. What is actually not nice to see is now how the riders are attacking all these decisions and how they're not understanding it when their representatives at that point were part of this decision making. Same with the teams and same with the other organisers. So it hasn't been, I'm not forgiving UCI about how this is going, how it's managed, but it's been a long process to be able to get it to this point. And that gives you a little bit of background on the water bottles. At the end of the day, yes, kids are missing out on getting water bottles.
No, John, Scooter put his finger up first. Respect the finger.
What people also forget is Tour de France, Tour of Flanders, Giro, these races, massive amounts of spectators. You go to the Tour of Poland, Tour of Turkey, Jayco Herald Sun Tour in Australia, and there are not many spectators at all out on the road. And if you've got 120 to 200 riders all throwing their bottles away out in a field in the middle of nowhere, there are no spectators to pick them up. So at the big races, sure, a lot of that stuff, that's memorabilia. People love it. But as soon as you go to that next tier level race down, no, it's just litter. It just becomes litter.
And look,
John?
guys, sorry, John, go first.
Oh, no, you're right.
No, look, it's just that. Look, we're talking about in Europe on the big races there, and the drink bottles. I don't think should be the bins should be counted as litter because I've never seen one laying there for more than 5 minutes. As people they fight with each other to get the drink bottle. But just before you guys came on, we were talking to Whitey, and Whitey said the biggest issue is, the rider comes back and he gets all the water bottles, but then they've got all the empty water bottles. Someone's got to then go back to the car again to take empty water bottles back. Yeah. It's creating another safety issue.
Well, John, it brings up a good one because as organisers, we're also looking at how we can help this situation. And one of the things was creating a sort of a bin sort of system on the back of a motorbike. But we've just gone through the process here internally at Flanders Classics events, and the same for the races in Australia, like Cadel Evans Gross Road Race. I don't want vehicles. I'm trying to eliminate the vehicles down to the bare minimum to have in the race. But then we're going to bring back another motorbike to put the water bottles into, which then they need to go back to the back of the peloton to where you've got a truck supposedly to get all those water bottles. So, I mean, you're looking at 25 teams in the race. On a warm day, they're probably going to drink about 8 to 10 bottles each. That's a few bottles and a few trips for this motorbike. So, how do you deal with it? And then come back to the clothing and all the rest of it. It's not easy. There's no one solution.
One suggestion is, what if they made it out of this biodegradable material that if that does end up in the forest, it melts down after whatever?
Well, there is that does exist, and it's probably Scotty's going to say the problem that they found with it, the bottles were not strong enough, and they would leak. The riders would squeeze them, and they just explode all over you. So it's been able to get the right composition in the bottles when it's biodegradable. Well, most of them are biodegradable, but it takes a couple of years.
About 300 for most of them. So if you go back a bit further, John might have the solution, because now Melbourne to Warrnambool, and I've heard you talk about it before, John, 270-kilometre bike race. How many bottles did you take, or how many bottles did you consume back in the day during a race like the Melbourne to Warrnambool?
2. That was it. 2 bins.
2 bottles. That's it. That leads you start with what you've got, and that's it. You've got to get to the end.
We were tougher back in my day, mate.
One was Scotch,
then
one
we're
was
start
bourbon.
giving pumps and tubes, mate. Then they can start doing it. Let's get the whole hog.
And wooden rims
down the front of your jersey for all your
wooden
food.
rims.
Could you imagine how exciting? Imagine how exciting it would be if, how every year on the Nationals course there's someone that does that target where they want people to throw the bottles into the target instead of the intermediate sprints where you get your 3, 2, 1 seconds. It's just bullseye, and if you can get it in the bullseye, bang, second bonus, it'd be unreal.
So we're going to be looking at recruiting sprinters from baseball in the US, then, mate.
Being in Victoria, Dan, it'll have to be a handball. So you have to do a handball.
That's right.
It's AFL territory. Any of the races in New South Wales, you'll have to actually 2 hands, rugby style, throw it in.
Now listen, we're starting to ramble on for a bit. Now,
Skip.
Now, 2 days ago, well, I've been in charge for 1 day and I'm getting carried away. But 2 days ago, 3 days ago, when we decided to get Scott Sunderland on, we didn't know that there's going to be the incident that happened yesterday. We got him on to talk about his amazing role running the director sportive of the Flanders Classics. So tell us about it, mate. Congratulations on another great effort.
Yeah, thanks, Iffy. Thanks. Yeah, being race director here in events for Flanders Classics is awesome. Being ex-rider and still being able to be amongst it and be in it is just ticking boxes. I mean, just absolutely love my job. But yeah, it's been a great spring, very successful. Another spring without spectators. When you're starting to promote people to stay at home instead of coming to watch live, it's completely opposite direction of what we're always trying to do, and getting particularly around also missing out on mass participations. But it's been a great spring, very successful, very happy with how it all went, and we got accolades as well from all the health departments here and on how it was all run, and very safe and COVID proof. And got a couple more to go. Got one on 24th of May, which would be the new revised Ron van Limburg, Tour of Limburg. We're looking forward to that. And then we've got two more in August with the Dreuven course on the 26th of August and 28th of August. It's a big one, which is building and growing from year to year. It's the Brussels Cycling Classic, which all new courses. So that one, Brussels Cycling Classic, is going to be doing some iconic climbs, and the Dreuven course, which will be doing the World Championship circuit finale. So, keep an eye out on those ones.
Now, the Rondo, the Tour of Flanders this year, I was just to say, was an absolute ripper. Before we get away onto something else, I just wanted to take us through, because you couldn't get it more excited. I thought last year's was brilliant, but this year's they managed to put it on for you again. Great finale.
Yeah, no, look, and that's all part of it, trying to create a course which is difficult enough, but also gives opportunities, gives a little bit of respite here and there for sports directors to talk to riders, and riders to assess what's going on, and you can see the tactics playing out from teams to teams, and that's what you need to be able to do in creating an optimal course. And mate, the riders, the way they do it, the teams, the tactics, it's just fantastic to see it play. I love it.
My question to you, Scott, was last weekend. Were you working on anything last weekend? Was there any races or anything in particular you were doing? Were you busy?
Last weekend, sort of. I was asked by the UCI to go down to take the place as safety manager from representing UCI, which is a new role, which also is filled by Richard Chazot. Richard Chazot is also the organizer of the Tour of Romandie. Because he was being race director of his own race, that's why I was asked to come in to be a guest safety manager for his event, where I had to critique my colleagues' own race. But that was fun. It was good. Once again, to be able to see an event from another side in a different role, and working closely with the commissaires and UCI on that one.
That could have been awkward if you said the wrong things to him. Now, the reason I asked, though, is because last week, with all the races that you're involved in, one of the biggest races on the planet was last weekend, the Grafton to Inverell. And if you could pencil in that date each year, maybe we can get you involved with that again. The actual race director this year was based in Perth, and he didn't want to risk coming over to the race in case there was some sort of lockdown, he couldn't get back or had to quarantine. So he was trying to be the race director. It went okay, but that's a recipe for disaster for the race director to not even be at the event. But obviously, it's a race that we're going way back now. But Grafton Inverell, it's not quite up there with Tour of Flanders, but great race here in Aussie, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is. It's one of those classics. We've got a few of those. A couple of them have disappeared. One of them, which I got to participate in my early years as racing in Australia, was the Goldman to Warrnambool. The Goldman to Sydney. But the Melbourne Warrnambool and the Grafton Inverell, and there's a few other classics which are still around. They're part of the culture of cycling in Australia. And the Grafton Inverell, of course, it's a hometown race for me, and I know every inch of that road. So, fortunately, it's also an event where you don't have to deal with too much road furniture or speed bumps and roundabouts and all that sort of thing. Pretty much once you get out of Grafton, you don't see anything like that until you get to Glen Annis, and that's only for a very short time, and then the rest is straight run into Inverell. So was probably if you're going to be a race director, it's probably one of the easiest and safest ones. Long day though in the car, but you got probably more chance of falling asleep than you do of actually having a problem to deal with.
Not even
John?
a traffic light, mate. Not even a traffic light.
No.
I can tell you that.
No, oh yeah, in Grafton. We've got one set of
Neutral
traffic
zone.
lights, I think.
Yeah, neutral section.
Yes, that's
through
true. It
Grafton.
is neutral. It is neutral.
And then they go around Glen Innes. I'm not even sure if there is a traffic light in Glen Innes. I don't think there is. So yeah,
I
not
think
even
I
a
could probably
set of
count on
traffic
one
lights.
hand how many roundabouts there are.
Don't think I saw one. Yeah.
If you had a very sharp finger before.
No, it's just that I said we're going to run out of time, and I really wanted to ask Scott Sunderland about the other race that you're the race director of and very involved with. Matter of fact, helped design the course in the first place, the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race. So, of course, didn't happen last January because of the whole COVID pandemic. What's the situation for next year?
At the moment, for us personally, the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race, we're in good shape. We're ready. There's been work happening in the background quietly. No announcements have been made and hoorah at the moment, but watch this space. That will be happening, and there will be some announcements in June. And they'll be working a little bit coinciding with South Australia with the Tour Down Under. Both Victorian Government and South Australian Tourism are talking to one another and discussing the best process, moving things forward. But yes, the other big elephant in the room is COVID and the quarantines. That's going to be a big thing for us and something that we need to monitor very, very carefully, very closely, and going forward because of what the Australian government wants and what's happening in the rest of the world. We're talking about vaccine passports and freeing up travel and movement across Europe and internationally for those who've been vaccinated and what types of vaccines they've had and PCR testing before you get on a plane and PCR testing on arrival and trying to limit the amount of quarantine time down to 7 days, which becomes far more doable. And let's hope that we can get to there. But definitely, mate, working hard or starting to turn up the gas on that one for the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race 2022.
We've had a few more comments, a lot around the team car stuff. Jason Cruz says, was lucky enough to be in a team car following the Giro a few years ago. It was amazing how skilled they were and very aware of other cars, bikes and motos. Agree that it felt like they had a sixth sense. And of course, Wendy Superfan says, I've been in a car twice and I'm amazed at the driver's control while speeding after the peloton with riders riding in and out of the cars. The driver needs eyes in their bums. That's right, Wendy. And Christy says, Scooter put his finger up, respect the finger. That's right. We do respect the finger and the process here. And Wendy wants to know, Scott, do you think Flanders will be able to have spectators next year?
I certainly hope so, Wendy. Certainly hope so. Flanders Classics has reinvested a lot of resource and money into running the events very close together because we sort of run both lots of our classics events pretty much back to back. So we through October and a quick turnaround to be back with our next event, which was Omloop et Nieuwsblad, the last weekend of February, followed on with the rest of our races. Part of the business model of being able to run these events is having spectators, both from VIP, so people being in hospitality, selling those packages, but also having tourist groups which are coming in. And also the mass participation events. I mean, Tour of Flanders on its own has about 30,000 people participating. So there is some revenue there. It's great for the public as well. Of course, that's why they're there to participate. But there is a revenue stream on the business model. So, yeah, we do need to be able to have spectators and the public and fans back on the sides of the road. And hopefully that's going to happen in 2022. So fingers crossed that it will.
On that, mate, if say the pandemic situation hasn't changed much by then, and who knows? Like last year, we thought a few months, but then it ended up being a year and a half, whatever. So if things haven't changed and you can't have the spectators, how many of these races are actually really in danger in that scenario of falling over financially?
I think we're probably better positioned than most, and why that is through negotiations, because we're a bigger group of events, so the deals are made, and we've turned the events into purely TV products. By doing that, is streamlining the whole thing and making it really viable, coming up with new ways of making it more spectator friendly and active, etc., and the promotion of the event. But you are right. I think a lot of the smaller events are really going to struggle because they, sponsorships, particularly we're talking on those races which are getting the highlights packages going out, etc. But they just don't have the resource, the knowledge, also. But they have the backers to be able to support what it goes into these events, because there's an extra layer of cost because we have to do all the COVID testing. Someone needs to pay for that. We've got a whole COVID team, and our COVID team's made up from emergency doctors, and we've got one of the lead professors in the country who's sitting in the car. So they're running all those COVID testing, which is happening the day prior. As organizer, we get PCR tested. Then we have the morning of the event, anyone who actually doesn't come in contact with the riders, but even on a motorbike, you're in a close vicinity, has to have a quick test, which is valid for about 24 hours. So all this has to be organised and set up, and then also paid for. So this, all the smaller races, they just can't do that. Like a Grafton Brel, for example, in a situation here, that just wouldn't happen, and that's what we're having at the moment. All the junior races and all the amateur races just aren't going ahead around Europe because of this cost and demand and the risk.
How's the vaccine rollout going in Belgium?
Bloody slow.
Yeah.
Bloody Pfizer's made down the road up here, like just north of Brussels, but all the vaccinations went to the UK and the US. So, like I say, money talks.
Yeah, that's it.
So now look, it's probably I think nearly everybody above the age of 60 has been vaccinated. 30% of the population has been. But like one of the professors here, who's one of the lead professors in the whole COVID, says that the moment that everybody above the age of 50 is vaccinated, completely changes the risk and the numbers of risk for COVID. So we're hoping that once that happens, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same thinking in Australia and across the world, as everybody above the age of 50 being vaccinated as soon as possible, and then working our way through to risk patients, then we're going to be in a lot better state. And hopefully that happens sooner than later, and that comes back to the Tour Down Under and the Cadel Evans Grosjean Road Race, that we need to happen as soon as possible, please.
Well, I'm just over 50 and I've been vaccinated, so all good.
Yeah, as long as you're all right, John. Now, boys, before we wrap things up, obviously the Giro's going on and things heated up yesterday. Scotty, I want to get your take. Who do you think is really at the pointy end for the GC now? Who do you think is showing the cards and looking good?
Look, I think someone that hasn't been mentioned is Dan Martin. I mean, Dan, you never know really how it all goes, because he's not the best of bike handlers and sort of always gets himself caught out in crosswinds and so forth. But I think Bernal at the moment showed that he wants it, and he was strong. Remco Evenepoel, I think he's underdone a little bit. Since his crash last year in Giro Lombardia and his injuries, it's a big call for him to be up there in the third week, and I think that's probably where he's going to need it most, is in that third week. And with Bernal, he's proven he knows what he's doing. He's managed himself well in the third week before in big tours, even won one. So he knows what he's doing. He knows that. And the best thing, most importantly too, he's got a team which totally knows how to manage him and support him.
What do you reckon, Scooter?
Hard to go past Bernal, isn't it? And the two hill stages we've had, he just was so comfortable. When Lander attacked the other day, and he just jumped across like it was no effort at all. And then last night, coming up towards the finish, he went out. He hit out early. No one tried to counter him. Like, it looked as if he backed off, and everyone was looking at each other. But I think he was just tapping out a 90% tempo that no one really, and it's different when you're watching on TV, because when you're in the race, you know exactly who's reacted quickly, who you can feel and sense has so much more to give. and you don't want to poke the bear. And someone like Bernal, he was able to just sit on the front, and just wind it up slowly towards the end, and then still beat them in the kick at the top. So right now he looks like the absolute standout, and with Lander gone, that just bolsters his chances even more, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I was just saying, I reckon Lander was the biggest opposition, and he's gone. Dan Martin was good, a lot better yesterday, but they're all just there. Even Evenepoel, who brilliant, right? He was just there yesterday. Bernal stand out to me.
And predictions for stage 7, Scooter?
I'm going to go for Nizzolo. I'd like it to be Caleb, of course, but look, he's been 11 times second now, and just that kicker. Whitey said at the top of the show, you've got this really steep kicker. It's 250, 300 meters along or so, 12% max gradient, and it comes down a really fast road. You turn right, and then it goes bang straight up it. So that could be tricky. Obviously the lead-out trains will be trying to go. It's a really strategic point. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's still going to be one of the fast guys, but someone like Nizzolo, maybe this is the interruption to the finish that he needs to be able to get the bloody win that he's been chasing. So it'd be great for an Italian champ like that, and European champ, to come away with the win. So I'll put some money on him for tonight.
Yep. We've had a couple more comments. You like this one, Scotty. Scotty Sunderland is an absolute legend. Good on you, Samantha. We've had another one from Patrick Varus, says, great insight into the production of cycling events, managing risks and collaborating with stakeholders. And we had one comment at the end. Gene didn't get out. That's from Ryan S. I think that's regarding the incident with the car, but the mechanic got out straight away. And if he, what's the protocols when things like that happen? Usually.
Well, the driver's not supposed to get out, but Gene did get out. Gene was, if you look at the replay, Gene was standing on the side of the road, so he did. They were both got out of the car. So the mechanic, that's Gene there. I'm pointing it to it. You can't see my finger. Yeah. So it's a mechanic at the back. They're pretty happy to be on the bike.
Johnny, what they might be thinking is that it's Matt White sitting in the car still in the passenger seat, because of course they're on the other side of the car in Europe. So that's right. The driver did get out.
No, Gene definitely got out of the car.
Yeah, and you are right, Iffy. The protocol is, and that's always in all my driver briefings prior to events, is that drivers should always stay in the car, in the vehicles. There are also drivers in other vehicles, just for a little bit of FYI. All drivers have got a whistle and a yellow flag. In case there is an incident, they can come, get out of the car and become a signaller as well. But in the team cars, they should, and then most other vehicles, particularly for the motorbikes as well, they need to stay in their position, because the vehicle can become an obstacle. And if it does need to be moved, the driver needs to be in the vehicle.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Good explanation. Anything you want to add before we go, Iffy?
Yes, well, you haven't asked me my selection, so I better give it to you. So,
what do you reckon?
I think
boring.
He's the fastest. He's the fastest, and but Tim Merlier, I think, is very quick as well. I'd love to see Nizzolo, but I reckon he could be going for second place, number 12.
I'll give you two here.
Yep.
You are right, Iffy. There's good reason. Tim Merlier, he won the Brussels Cycling Classic last year, which had more or less the same sort of kicker just before the finish. You are right, Scotty, is that Nizzolo just might need that disruption, as you mentioned, to stir things up. But Caleb Ewan, where was he in Milan San Remo with that bump on the road called the Poggio?
It was good, wasn't it? It was really good. Yeah.
Actually, I've got one important question for you, Scotty Sunderland, before you go. What sort of scotch you got in that cabinet behind you? It looks quality stuff. You got the nice glasses. What's your poison of choice up there?
At the moment,
this is some great insight, folks.
Cola Ila.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit more peaty, smoky. It's a really nice one.
Yeah.
And if you like a little bit more of the French oak, then the old Pulteney.
Ooh, jeez.
And then there's a Venny up there, and
mate.
Really nice. You got time? I can show you.
Yeah, give us a look. Mate, next time we finally get up to Belgium, I'll bring the axe if you'll come along, and we'll have a big night for sure.
Yep, sounds great. Look forward to that one.
Yeah.
That'll be after COVID.
That's not the axe to break into your back door when you're not at home, mate. That's your guitar.
Yeah.
I got that.
Yeah. And did you guys mention the new leader of the bike race?
No, who's that?
We actually
Yes.
we didn't, and that's a wonderful story, isn't it? A Hungarian.
Oh yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't
I heard
mention
him
him. What
He's
an
watching the
amazing performance.
He's watching the show tonight. He'd be pretty pissed off you haven't even mentioned him.
Right.
That's
Well,
it.
give us a spiel then, Scooter.
Attila the Hungarian.
Attila Volta, 22-year-old. Yes, so he was a mountain biker. So as a junior, he came through mountain biking locally, pretty good, and actually did some sort of junior level international stuff in Belgium and things like that as a mountain biker. So pretty decent bike handling skills, you would imagine. Then got signed up for the CCC Polish team, and then when they folded, he did the deal to go across to Groupama FDJ. So it's worked out pretty well for him. He won his home tour 2020, so the Tour of Hungary riding for CCC. Damien Housen was third in that tour overall, so a bit of an Aussie connection that I always like to make. And he was time trial champ for Hungary in 2019, so not too bad. Now, if you will let me entertain you, I've got a Hungarian connection. My former teammate at Mapei, Laszlo Bodrogi, was Hungarian, multiple times Hungarian champion. He eventually went across and nationalised himself as French and rode for AG2R for a number of years. And he was a bit of a quirky cat, Laszlo. Great time trialer, medalist at the World Championships in the time trial back in the day as well. And he was pretty OCD. Now, he roomed with or shared an apartment with Charlie Wagelius, so EF Education team manager. And Charlie knew how obsessed Laszlo was with certain things, particular things, and he'd have the magazines on the coffee table would have to line up perfectly with the edge of the table, things like that. So Charlie would come a bit like that. Charlie would come home from a training ride, notice everything that's perfectly lined up, and the towels and the hand towels, everything could be perfect, and he'd just tap a book on the way through, pull down on a towel a little bit, and then go up to his room and have a shower. And then when he came back, the magazines would be all straightened up again, the towels would all be leveled up again, and he was just messing with him all the time. And we had where we lived, because you had Alan Davis, Mick Rogers, myself, Charlie, a few others were living in this compound of apartments that Mapei had supplied us, and we had a pool. And on a rest day, we're all sort of out around the pool one day, and Laszlo came out. He didn't speak very often. He didn't say many words. He could speak English, but chose not to. And he'd walk out with his budgie smugglers on, towel over his shoulder, and then with a Magnum ice cream. And he'd walk up to the pool, put the towel down, sit down, eat his Magnum, jump in the pool, do 4 laps, get out, roll over onto his back, jump in the pool, do 4 laps, get out, roll onto his stomach, jump in the pool, do 4 laps, get up, pick his towel, and walk off. And I remember thinking, seemed like a bit of a routine he had going on there. 1 week later, we're out around the pool. Laszlo walks out in his budgie smugglers, towel over his shoulder, Magnum ice cream, put the towel down, and went through the exact same procedure again. 4 laps, 20 minutes, 4 laps, 20 minutes, 4 laps, and then gone again. But wow, that's why he's such a good time trialer. He loved the process.
It sounds like Rafael Nadal before he serves the ball.
It takes about that long, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. What do you reckon, John?
Boring.
Boring.
I thought it was good. Oh, we're hopeless.
No,
anyway,
good Scotty.
No, it was. Before we go, obviously, follow us on youtube.com/the Detour Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. John, it's time to plug the Green Edge Outlet X Team Issue sale on Bike Exchange.
Tomorrow, I'll see you all down there. It's 10 o'clock in at Bike Exchange headquarters in Buckhurst Street, South Melbourne. And sensational. There's a stack of old Scott frames, brand new actually, but some of them 4 and 5 years old, some of them 2 years old. And Scott sunglasses, shoes, amazing. Don't miss out.
Are you going to offload any of your old books as well and sign those?
We don't give them away, mate. We charge top dollar for those.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't
All right.
tell you.
That's why you still got them.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for being on the show, Scotty Sutherland. Thanks, Scooter. Thanks, Iffy. I enjoy the stage tonight. It's on SBS, obviously live, so we'll be stay tuned for that. And we'll be back again tomorrow because it is a monster weekend of the Giro. We've got 2 massive stages, and it's really going to shake up the GC. So stay tuned for that. And tomorrow night, I'm not on again, Johnny. You're going to be leading the charge at 7:30. Are we going to go? 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I've got a lot of my guests up yet, but yeah, all good. We look forward to it. It's a surprise guest tomorrow night.
That's
surprise
right.
to me and to everyone else.
Whoever answers the phone.
That's it. See you then.
This is the winning ride